Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where I review anything and everything. And today we are reviewing another golden book, a little golden book. This one is obviously, as it's titled there, for the Mandalorian, based off the Mandalorian show. This is the way. So, as I previously reviewed on this channel, I had a couple of Star Wars toys, particularly the Mission Fleet line that I had bought for my kids, and one of them was the Mandalorian and his spaceship, the Razor Crest. And so I then went hand in hand to buy them this book because trying to get them into Star Wars is so much easier to buy a book like this than it is to get them to watch a full series of something like The Mandalorian, along with the fact that the age of my kids, which is 4, that obviously, you trying to sit them down and watch a Mandalorian, you don't know if you should even have them watching that, let alone the fact that will they be able to comprehend it and take it all in. So, me mentioning to my kids like the name Grogu and the little toy figure, when they're able to see the book now, they right away is like, that's Grogu, and Mandalorian. So this book is a great way to get your kids into Star Wars, or in this particular case, The Mandalorian, without having to go through the series. And we're going to pretty much just, as I've done in my previous reviews of the Golden Books, we're going to try to see how much this conveys the material of the show into a condensed book as best as possible. And in this case, you're actually trying to condense the full season 1 in this book. So, and I think it does a pretty good job of that. So we're going to dive into it. First, taking a look at the back, you see some references to some other books, other Star Wars books. So let's see what we got here. Starts off just introducing the Mandalorian and his ship. He goes into his first bounty as he captures, just like in the show, I forget what the name of this guy's species is, but the blue aqua guy, and he puts him in carbonite. This is when he first goes on to his mission to capture the kid. They don't go into details of him doing the mission, but just explains briefly that, he went on an unexpected mission and he ended up finding the child. So, and keep in mind at this time too, he was just called the child. So being that this covers from season 1, it's not going to go into, the child being called Grogu, even though we all know that. And at the date of this recording, I didn't see a season 2 yet made into a book form. So when that comes out, I'll definitely look for that. So here, cutting out the fat, the mission wasn't very important, so they did leave that out. But in terms of the details of it, but then getting to, the guy who wanted Grogu, and so he ends up obviously having a change of heart. Depicts that here. He grabs him. They take off. They pretty much say they go on exciting adventures, which in general you could say is the case. These are all the people he encounters. Obviously, he encountered him during the first mission of getting Grogu, but those are little details that doesn't really matter. It's just kind of briefly let you know all the people they came across and made friends with during that time. These are some of the enemies that they came across, which had those kind of missions that they went through on the show, which is fine that they don't go into those details. A kid is not going to miss that. And if you've seen the show, you could explain those details yourself if you want to just, explain it out. Hey, he went on this mission and this is what happened when he went to do that. Now, obviously, you see here, they go in different orders in terms of the grand scheme of the story, because this was actually, I think, the second or third episode where this happened. But, it's fine because, like I said, in the context of a kid reading it, it does a good job with still depicting what's happening in general. Here are the times where the child, where he protected the child, it says, and then flips it to the time where the child protected him, which this obviously was an earlier episode as well, but it still conveys the point in the message. And this also is where it shows his powers, so people get an idea of that as well, which was also shown on the last page before it. And that pretty much sums it up. And it just finishes off with them two becoming a family. So that aspect of it is where it becomes a little more kid friendly. Obviously, rather than showing him have this kind of battle at the end, even one page of a battle with Moff Gideon, which, you know, they just depicted him in a picture showing that that's one of his enemies. But in general, just to get a kid into the Mandalorian, I think it does a good job as far as it conveying all the entire season of the Mandalorian. I think that, yeah, I'm not gonna knock a kid's book, but I will say that it could have probably done a little better job in terms of the orientation of how they kind of jumped around with it. If they wanted to make it more like how the show, you know, like I mentioned before, some of those missions that they show later on would have come, like this would have come earlier inside the book in terms of its orientation, as well as this would have come earlier in the book as well, just to show like, okay, he went on adventures with him and he, you know, protected the Mandalorian and vice versa and things of that sort, getting to the point of where this would then come afterwards to say on those adventures he made these friends maybe, and then saying, you know, the enemy, this part would come like maybe at the end a picture of Grief Karga would have actually been closer related to this scene here, because, you know, this was part of that moment where Grief Karga was making this whole attack on him. So in terms of the orientation of the book, I think the content is perfect. I think the orientation could be a little better. I mean, I'm not going to knock the content because obviously it's a kid's book. You can't put a whole bunch of stuff in it. So I'm fine with the content, but the orientation of where you put things, if you're matching it directly with the show, I think could have been done a little bit better. But like I said, I'm not going to knock it because it's a kid's book and it does get your kids into it. So I think that's a plus. And, you know, yeah, I'm giving it my approval. I definitely recommend it. I'm going to try to post in the comments. I'm sorry, not in the comments. Post in the description where you can purchase this on Amazon, a link to the Amazon. And yeah, so catch you guys in the next video.